Welcome to Monster Chats, presented by Monster VoIP, where we share the tools, methods, and best practices that business leaders use to build new connections, strengthen relationships, and impact sales in organizations of all shapes and sizes. If you have any questions that come up during today's episode, please text them to 424-378-6966. Please welcome the founder of Monster VoIP, your host, Colin Mitchell.
All right, on today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Amy Hedrick. Amy and I are going to be talking about smart tech hygiene, medical facilities, and enterprise. I'm Colin Mitchell, the host of Monster Chats and the founder of Monster VoIP. Amy Hedrick is the CEO and co-founder of Cleanbox Technology. As a thought leader providing insights into the immersive technology, she brings solutions and innovation in smart tech hygiene. Having led multiple teams from project inception and execution through profitable completion, she has proven herself an effective leader in diverse venues over the past decade. Amy, welcome to Monster Chats. How you doing?
Thank you, Colin. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just tell us a little bit about your story, kind of where you grew up and kind of how you got into wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Well, wanting to be an entrepreneur is an interesting way of putting it. I think sometimes it comes to you. And certainly in my case, that's been the case. Cleanbox is not my first entrepreneurial activity, of course, but it is my most, what shall I say? It's been my greatest challenge and my greatest reward at the same time. And it's certainly, I got here in a very circuitous path. I did not take a direct route to get to this point. So it's been an interesting journey. But yeah, I started on a completely different path and I ended up here, as it turns out, the right place at the right time.
Wow. Okay. So what was the original path or plan that led you there?
Well, a little bit back, a number of years ago, 4, 5, 6 years ago, in a previous life, I've had a focus on content creation on the production side and storytelling side. And so way back a long time ago, which I won't date myself by mentioning how many years ago, but a number of years ago, I was working on a project about the Wright brothers. And so I had reached out to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., and developed this amazing set of relationships across the institution, from air and space to natural history, just wonderful people, brilliant minds, great content, and maintained those relationships over the years. And so a few years ago, when I was writing for a think tank about how technology was beginning to influence global consumer behavior and how we thought, what are the trends coming forward? How can large corporations learn how to be agile, and what's going to influence how we learn? I was writing about mobile. Where's mobile going? Well, virtual reality, immersive technology, augmented reality at the time was pretty far out, which is still a bit out. And so I had the idea of, the Smithsonian, here's 155 million objects in their possession. They can only physically display 1%, but you have these amazing technologies that you could utilize in theory to tell a story in a better way, better engagement, better learning. And so at the time I pitched an idea. And part of that was coming up with all of the solutions of how to execute successfully, implemented in a way that 30 million people could maybe take advantage of that, because that's their average through traffic annually across the locations in DC, and how to do it in a way that would work well with a government entity. So that was a lot of challenging things to solve. And one of the first things that we had to solve before it was a problem was that of hygiene. We had to figure out how to think about, you have, again, 30 million people, but they're coming from all over the world. So you have various maybe potential contagion transfers that you have to think about. You have a VR and AR headset is very personal. You wear it on your face. It touches your skin. It's in proximity to your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your hair. So if you're sick with anything, you could potentially have an increased risk of sharing that contagion, which of course now is not such an unknown concept, but 5, 6 years ago, it was a problem that we were anticipating what could go wrong. Let's try to prevent it from going wrong. That's where Cleanbox came from, and we really looked at it as a risk mitigation point of view. Let's solve this problem. Let's make sure it doesn't become a problem. Here's a barrier of entry for broader adoption, whether that be enterprise adoption or global consumer adoption, and let's figure out how to make this an easier process. And there you go. So
wow.
certainly less traveled.
Sounds like you were really up for a challenge, huh?
Yes, I always realize that in retrospect. I always think, oh, okay, I can do this, no problem. And then I look back and I think, well, I probably could have done something easier, but here we are. It is
but then if it was too easy, it wouldn't be any fun, right?
I suppose not. No, I'd probably be bored and then choose something else that wasn't easy. So here we are.
So, I mean, was it hard to get people at that time, before the current situation, to even admit that this was maybe a problem?
Sure. For a number of reasons. Obviously, if people one of the things that we ran into a lot was the idea that people were already using VR and AR in enterprise without a hygiene solution. So they really were like, we don't really want to talk about this because it might, cause damage to us for having pushed it without a hygiene solution. So we don't want to fix it after the fact. That was sometimes, an argument that came up. And sometimes it was just like, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything until somebody complains about it. So I've been, as I say, preaching the good hygiene word for a couple of years now. So on the speaker circuit at XR events and attending, traveling all over the world and talking about how important this is, not just from a practical hygiene point of view, but from a business side, because this is one of those sticking points where the industry, if it gets it wrong, it could absolutely damage not only what you're doing in like location-based entertainment, for example, but any sort of programs on the healthcare side that are using immersive technologies for bettering healthcare and bettering surgeries and performance and businesses that are using it to train and so on. So one little thing like that, which isn't so little, but it could become that cog in the wheel that we were hoping to avoid. And so, yes, now I will admit it is easier to talk about hygiene because people are, it's in your face.
And there's probably some people kicking themselves saying, we maybe should have jumped on that hygiene train maybe a little bit earlier, right?
Yes, I would say so. But the good news is there are, businesses are being, obviously have to be active about it. They have to think about that in terms of even coming back into business. So businesses being closed down that have either their immersive technology program is their entire business, as in LBVR, or they've invested as a company very much heavily into an immersive training program or something along those lines. And they think about, okay, well, what's the risk factor and how do I mitigate that risk? And again, how can I preserve this program that has clearly had some return on investment to have the type of investment in it that, some businesses have had. So it is a critical component to bringing that back on board.
Okay, well, tell me a little bit about the actual technology itself and how it works.
Well, it's a very simple technology, and we use UVC light, which is a known decontaminating component. It's been used in UVC has been used in healthcare for decades, so it's a very trusted way of decontaminating effectively. There's a lot of conversation about UV light right now, and it can become very confusing. So maybe if you don't mind, I'll take 5 seconds and simplify.
Yeah, absolutely.
Down. So UVC is a wavelength of light, as is UVA and UVB. A lot of times in the general thought process, they can become confused. But UVA and B is like the sunlight, for example, or a tanning bed. Now, we know that, you can get a suntan or a sunburn, or it can damage plastics, for example, if you leave them out in the sun. UVC light is very, very different. And it's different because it does not exist naturally in the atmosphere. It's a very short wavelength of light. And what it does is it disrupts DNA and RNA strands. So in other words, it will disrupt the DNA and RNA strand of a contagion, making it unable to replicate. And that is how it's been used traditionally in healthcare. Now, usually it's been used with a mercury tube or in a bulb. And more recently, we've been able to take that same technology, the same wavelength of light, but put it in a different form factor. So we have it in an LED now, where we can choose the nanometer wavelength that is the sweet spot for broadest contagion eradication. And so that's what we do. It eliminates any kind of heat that is associated with mercury bulbs. Obviously, no more mercury, which is good because no toxins. There's no ozone. So you're basically coming up with a very highly effective way of decontaminating without any of the negative side effects. So it's an environmentally friendly way. Cleanbox's specialty is the highest efficacy use of UVC light. So all of our engineering is around getting maximum decontamination in the shortest amount of time. So it's a math equation of distance, the intensity, as well as duration. So.
Okay, and it's completely safe using it?
It's completely safe. It's completely safe for the user. It's completely safe for electronics. Now, remember, we designed it around hard to clean but highly sensitive electronics, VR and AR headsets, which have multiple surfaces. They have hard plastic surfaces, but they also have sensitive lenses. They also have fabric or Velcro, other components, and they don't have just one flat surface. It's you have a headset. It's got lots of surfaces, lots of places for shadows. So all of our engineering has overlapping light radius so that there's no chance of a shadow preventing a full decontamination, for example.
Okay.
Yeah,
So these VR headsets are kind of the more commonly used case. Now, is there any new ways that people are talking about using your technology or more common use in businesses?
Sure, absolutely. For instance, the earphones that you're wearing now, that is a business model that we have with our company in broadcasting headsets as well. So anything with the mic, of course, anything that's worn on your face or head. So, and then we also have a product that is for decontaminating masks. Now, one of the things that we did, it was a COVID response, and we kind of pivoted very, very quickly because we know that UVC is highly effective against coronaviruses, but we wanted to be able to show, considering that the entire world has been shut down, show its efficacy against COVID-19, which is SARS-CoV-2. So we were able actually to get into a biohazard level 3 lab and test against SARS-CoV-2 on our product with our engineering decontaminating N95 masks. So obviously that's a little bit different than a VR headset, but the same technology, the same engineering is applicable. And so we designed product around a mask, and we were able.
Okay, and so how did it turn out?
Well, good. So just to clarify, masks are a little bit harder to clean because they're textile. You have different components. It's not a hard, flat surface. Hard, flat surfaces are easier to clean than complex surfaces. But we reached 99.9% decontamination after 1 minute of exposure in our what's called a clean defense. It cleans 4 masks at once. Sorry about that. That was my laptop. And then we reach logs 5 consistently, which is 99.999 plus at 2 minutes on a mask.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes. So that's a different use of the technology.
Yeah. Now, is there any plans or ideas around like more of a consumer use, like maybe people decontaminating their packages before they bring them in or anything like that?
Well, sure. I'm not for packages specifically for us at the moment, but we do have a product that's coming out this summer, which, for lack of a better name, we've called the ad hoc box because basically it's for ad hoc items and electronics. So, but it has a lot of unique features about it, unlike any other types of use of UVC light on the market. And some of that includes the ability to track hygiene history of an object. And then any object that you put in it will have full surface decontamination, no matter what object that is, because it will fall in the right spot in that box. So anything from laptops to cell phones, earbuds, lavs, lanyards, doesn't have to be electronics, but if you put it in there, walkie-talkie, for example, and you leave it in there, it will be the same engineering, same use case, same cycle.
Interesting. So like maybe like in a school setting for tablets and other things that kids are sharing, things like that?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Very cool. So tell me, what have been some of the biggest challenges for you as an entrepreneur?
Everything. Everything is a new challenge. Well, I think that's the nature of doing something different, being a first to market company as we have been in the XR space. That sometimes the challenge is having the vision and finding a way to share it in a way that connects with your intended audience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's often a learning process. You might have it completely clear in your head and talk about it in a certain way, and then people will ask questions in a way that makes you realize they really didn't understand what you said in the first
Mm-hmm.
place. So that's been a great learning process for me, because I do talk a lot and go to these events and then in different cultures, different countries. So a lot of places where English is second or third language.
Mm.
So being able to take it and communicate properly has been one of the bigger challenges. And I think that's probably true of a lot of, with a lot of entrepreneurs that are coming to market with a new idea or a new product.
Yeah, I mean, it validates that there actually is a need or a problem that you're solving, and being able to put that message out there in a way that it makes sense to the average person, right? That might not be able to understand a lot of the, terminology that you do, obviously.
Yes.
That is definitely a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. It has been, but it's also, I think personally, just in general as a person, it's been great for me because I feel like I learn from that, not just the business, but me personally, I become a better person, hopefully a better communicator, and hopefully that translates into how I lead the team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you see as what's kind of on the vision path for you guys for the next 5 years?
A lot. So we have our products that are built specifically for any HMD, head-mounted display of any kind. We're also working, like I mentioned, in broadcasting, so broadcasting headsets, etc. Any types of non-360 form factor, like the glasses that you're wearing now, for example, something along those lines. So in terms of product and innovation, we have a number of things in our pipeline that have been there. Some have been escalated from COVID. And so that's exciting for us. And in terms of that, we've been growing our internal team, branching into new markets. All of that is very exciting. One thing that's kind of unique about our company is we're entirely remote company. And we have R&D headquarters, which is close to our assembly houses and fulfillment houses. But other than that, our entire team some of them are in California. We have a couple in Canada, some in New York, New Jersey, Florida. So we're a bit all over the place. So we had that as an advantage coming into quarantine, to be honest with you, because everybody kind of already had their system of how they got their job done. And so that worked well for us.
Great. So tell me, before I let you go, where people can find out more about Cleanbox or where they can connect with you online.
We're on all social media sites. So cleanboxtech.com. And if you want to email us, info@cleanboxtech.com. That way it will be routed to the right person depending on what kind of request you have. I would say giving you my email is not the best idea since I'm constantly behind in my emails. So you'll get a faster response if you email info@. And then that's Cleanbox Tech. @Cleanbox is our handle on Instagram and Twitter as well, and Facebook. So please reach out.
Yes, thank you so much, Amy. If you are listening to the podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends, and we're listening for your feedback. The show is all about you.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Monster Chats, presented by Monster VoIP, where we share the tools, methods, and best practices that business leaders use to build new connections, strengthen relationships, and impact sales in organizations of all shapes and sizes. If you have any questions from today's show and want to reach us directly, please text your question to 424-378-6966.